Question is that Clause 80 stand part of the bill. Baroness Fox of Buckley.
This series of stand part amendments, my Lords, relates to clauses 80 to 84 and deletes from the bill the Building Safety Manager. This is my first attempt at tabling amendments, so I'm nervous about the procedural aspects of that, but I hope to explain why I've, as it were, come in on this issue in particular. And how I came about it is, I think, telling in relation to some general concerns I have about the bill, and specifically Part 4 of the bill. I came to this whole issue, as some others here, based on being a leaseholder myself and being part of a group of noble lords who were horrified at the awful impending tragedy of leaseholders being forced to pay crippling remediation costs on the back of the response to the Grenfell tragedy. And many of those egregious injustices are now being addressed and have been already in this committee. However, at my second reading speech, I raised a different set of concerns about adopting a zero-risk approach. That risk aversion is in danger of creating a zealotry beyond the bounds of what is reasonable, practical or desirable. That if the aim of the bill becomes eliminating all risks, that itself has its own risks and creates a new set of victims. For example, if safety is turned into a panic, it can lead to an ever-spiralling demand for safety outside the bounds of common sense. And this could dangerously destroy confidence both in the construction sector, in the high-rise housing market, and create new layers of bureaucracy that will hinder rather than help. Rather to my surprise, my speech at second reading led to a group of leaseholders contacting me, saying that they shared some of my concerns. The Tower Hamlets Justice for Leaseholders group and Friends in High Places, but those campaigners explained that they understood, because they felt that just as with COVID, as it had proved, it can be difficult in situations involving safety to argue that less should be done, but sometimes less should be done. But this proposal for building safety managers for every block is just one of the concerns that they have of some of the unintended consequences of the bill, imposing costly layers of bureaucracy on us, as they say, while giving sweeping powers to managing agents and freeholders, and inflicting yet more pain on leaseholders with provisions such as building safety managers threatening to turn, which they describe as turning into another EWS1 fiasco. All the provisions of Part 4 of the bill seem to assume the problem of residential fire safety as a lack of appropriate people and processes checking for fire risks in every possible instance. But perhaps the real problem is the competence of the people already in place and the enforcement of rules and regulations that already exist, rather than making up lots more or creating new roles. As the leaseholder group note, writing into law that every building will have to appoint a building safety manager is a duplication of the role of the existing managing agents and building managers, and it proceeds from the false assumption that these housing blocks are, quote, like barrels of oil needing almost daily surveillance and supervision to ensure they don't burst into flames at any moment. The truth is that fires are relatively rare. They cannot be prevented altogether, and the priority of this bill should be to build in adequate safety systems and then maintain those properly so that residents can evacuate as quickly and as easily as possible should fire occur. Instead, these clauses create an unnecessary duplicate role that actually will, guess what, yet once more, financially cripple leaseholders. The government itself estimates that the cost of a building safety manager will be £60,000 a year per block. For Lucy, in a block of 33 flats, this will add £1,818 to her annual service charge. For Ruth, in a block of 19 flats, so the building safety manager costs would add £3,157 a year to her service charges. It's not clear either whether that £60,000 estimate that was on the government's website has factored in employers' national insurance and pension, plus the 20% VAT that an employing company would have to add to the charge. So that would bring the cost to £85,000, in which case Lucy's annual service charges would rise by £2,575 and Ruth's by £4,473. It's not clear exactly if that 60,000 figure still stands, because the fact sheet explaining the building safety manager's average pay of £60,000 per building per year was rather quietly removed from the government's own website after 5 p.m. last Wednesday. Luckily, the leaseholders have screenshots, and I have them here if anyone would like to look at them. I'm hoping that this is a sign, a positive sign, that the government is going to scrap the policy, delete the policy like the website, web page, or at least water it down by turning it into a function that can be met by existing management agents, property managers, and not treated as a separate job. With the words of I don't know what the phrase, Michael Gove, the Secretary of State, Michael Gove, ringing in our ears, he has warned that, quote, too many buildings are declared unsafe, and that many of the problems associated with the cladding scandal have been caused not by unsafe buildings but overzealous inspectors and nefarious players seeking to profit from the current crisis. And it's those words that I think we should have in the back of our mind when we ask a key question here, which is, do we stop? Do I stop?
Yes, my lords, there is a division in the chamber. Yes, there is a division in the chamber, and I will adjourn the committee for up to 10 minutes.
The proceeding is currently suspended.
I think we are all reassembled, and we were listening to Baroness Fox of Buckley.
I know that you've been waiting with bated breath. So the key question here is, why are building safety managers needed at all when the vast majority of leasehold developments have managing agents in place and leaseholders have to pay a management fee for their services? And surely, anyway, splitting the function would mean a risk of disputes between property managers and building safety managers about what is and what is not a safety issue, and who is in control when works have a safety element in terms of any remediation. These buildings that people live in already have fire risk assessments carried out by specialist firms. Even if I know that one of the problems is that those aren't shared with leaseholders, and that can mean that defects can be kept hidden and necessary repairs delayed. But still, I want to ask, what will the building safety manager actually do? Now, in order to find out, and I don't know if the noble minister has seen this, I watched a recording of a closed-door meeting of sector professionals trying to pin down the role. It was full of flip charts and pie charts and Venn diagrams, and I was utterly confused by the end of it. It seemed to me to be a jack of all trades, a master of none, but they need the authority of a professional expert. It really was reminiscent of a scene from David Brent's The Office. These are also compulsory jobs, but they aren't mandated to a minimum standard. Qualifications for the role haven't been established, no training programmes are in place, and as I say, even the professionals themselves don't seem to know what that training would consist of. And if this post is made mandatory, as proposed by these clauses, the qualified few will be able to write their own salary checks, surely. No wonder, therefore, leaseholder campaigns and campaigning groups are talking about jobs for the boys. Even if that's a bit cynical, we do have to ask who will judge their performance or hold them to account. And as always, the leaseholders who will be paying for them and are best placed to judge those overseeing the block they live in due to day-to-day interactions, that is, the leaseholders themselves are now saying that they won't have any say at all. So safer homes, I would conclude, are not going to come from employing someone to march around a block of flats trying to find issues to justify their existence and quite a hefty salary. This, it seems to me, is a version of the Waking Watch debacle, replacing high-vis jacket patrols walking around buildings looking for sparks with a suited and booted manager with an iPad, finding risks and faults and unnecessary fire safety work, because if they don't find any problems, what's the point of their job? And indeed, my lords, I finish with that. What is the point of the job? And I'm hoping the noble minister agrees with me that there is no point.